Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on December the 3rd in the year of our Lord 2025. I started out a couple of minutes early so we can get past the introduction and get into the video. Let me go ahead and click on Murtech on Rumble. Take us to my Rumble channel here. This is the video we're watching tonight, episode 1765. It says upcoming, but as you know, you're actually watching it. So let's go ahead and click into this. Let me close out the live chat. Slide down here and click the Show More button to expand out the description box. And we have information from Alex Newman, Black Conservative Perspective, Dr. Steve Turley, and X22 Report. But before we get into that, I do need to give a shout out to Love the Redhead, just started following my channel. RL Mech 46 just started following my channel. Haffen Jersey 1 just started following my channel. Paul Smith 47 just started following my channel. And Diable just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in and I hope you enjoy the content. All right. Ms. Flintstone 17 reposted my daily news wrap-up from last night. Debbie BS reposted my episode 1764 from last night. Debbie BS also commented on my daily news wrap-up from last night. Viper Senior commented on my episode 1764. ADK Back and Debbie BS commented on my extra 549A. And Debbie BS commented on my extra 549B and 549C. So thank you very much, folks, for your comments. I greatly enjoy reading your feedback, and I definitely appreciate your support. So let me give this a thumbs up. Boom. And speaking of comments and feedback, let me show you here from Viper Senior, the comment of the day. Thank you for rating Windy Bell Radio. Was great to see that. Now, what he's talking about here is at the end of my videos, and when I was just learning how to do it, I actually did it at the beginning of my videos. But at the end of my video, my extras, I start that off, about 10 or 15 or 20 minutes, depending on what video I want to share during my extra. And then at the end of it, I can do what they call a raid in the comment box with the link to her video, and it'll take you right to her live stream. And I've done that with Chicks on the Right. Their live stream starts about 8 o'clock. Wendy starts at 9 o'clock. So I've been rating Chicks on the Right and Wendy Bell. If you watch my extras live stream, it'll take you to right there to those videos, those producers. Right there. Thank you for rating Wendy Bell Radio. Okay, let's jump back here and let's see what Alex Newman has to say, how Trump could trump the UN Climate Con with Glenn Beck. I thought this was great. I wanted to share it with you. Glenn Beck and Alex Newman. I like both of them. So let's see what they're talking about here.
Alex Newman, who is a journalist and also going to be joining our Torch team, I believe. He is a journalist and just a really, really good reporter and journalist and investigative kind of guy. He runs Liberty Sentinel Media. He was out at the COP30 climate summit, week before last. And I just never got a chance to go out to him. And I just wanted to hear the recap of what actually happened at the climate summit, because we didn't go, which I'm thrilled about. And of course, China's just really looking good. Are they? They're building one coal plant a week. Are they really leading the world in this? What a bunch of dopes. But he was there. And as we look at things, are we getting better or worse or about the same, Alex? What's actually happening with the climate change stuff?
Well, thank you very much for having me, Glenn. It's great to be here. And I've been covering these for 15 years now. I've been going to the one they did in Copenhagen. I've been covering these for New American Magazine. And This one was very interesting because we've got Trump in the White House, and of course, he actually boycotted the summit. We reached out to the State Department. They told us they deliberately chose not to send anybody. So there was no U.S. delegation for the first time in 30 years of these. And that made for a very interesting situation. Yeah, and a lot of Americans thought that was great, hooray, and a lot of the climate skeptics also thought so. But some of the globalists at the UN conference also said, hey, this is a great opportunity because the United States is still involved in the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, but they're not here to obstruct passage of an ambitious deal. So let's do some great stuff, and then when Trump is gone in 3.5 years, we'll impose that on Americans. So obviously Trump card to get us out of the UNFCCC. But as of now, they passed a pretty interesting agreement, Glenn. It included a mention of a carbon budget. They claim that 4/5 of the CO2 that humans can be allowed to emit has already been emitted. And of course, the United States and the West, most of that. True story. So India and China get to do the rest, essentially. They passed really a lot of the side agreements. A big group, including a bunch of U.S. allies, passed an agreement on information integrity where they said we need to censor the internet and censor people who don't agree with us. Pretty remarkable. Brazil and the European Union they created this new system to integrate the carbon markets of the world. And they were very enthusiastic about that. They got in the main agreement a bunch of new metrics and tools for analytics, basically tools for future enforcement of these climate decrees. So a lot happened. And really, I think the strategy for these people, Glenn, is, hey, we've got Trump for 3.5 more years. Let's just keep our heads down. We know that he doesn't believe us. We know the American people don't believe us. So let's just not talk about it too loudly. We'll keep building this climate regime, as they call it, brick by brick, cop by cop. And once Trump is gone, we'll hit the pedal to the metal again.
Wow. So was this a mistake by not showing up?
I don't know. I know some of the people down at the UN summit thought this was a good opportunity for them. But, Trump's not done. I've spoken with people at EPA. I've spoken with people at the State Department who have said that they are seriously considering the possibility of withdrawing from the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is the 1992 treaty that created this whole process. Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer because Trump has taken really decisive action on this. In fact, before he went into the White House, he said one of the top priorities for the MAGA movement and the United States needs to be to decisively crush this climate hysteria hoax. So he's really serious about it. And if you look at the executive orders he's done, he has taken a chainsaw to this in terms of the funding, in terms of the subsequent agreements. He also has reversed what they call the endangerment finding during Obama's administration. They claimed carbon dioxide, the gas we exhale, is pollution that needs to be regulated under the Clean Air Act. So he's in the process of reversing that. So he seems very serious about stopping this madness. And I don't think he's done yet.
So how far did they get towards their goal of eliminating oil and gas?
Well, this is a funny story. I was on the Arabian Peninsula a couple of years ago, and they managed to get that into the final agreement, which was a huge victory for the most radical elements here. The Rockefeller Front groups like Oil Change International. This was like their crowning achievement, and they couldn't get that reiterated in this year's agreement, I think partly because Trump was pressuring some of the Arab governments not to go along with it. But they're still very serious about getting rid of fossil fuels. But here's the thing, Glenn, and I pointed this out in my cover story after coming back from Dubai, the COP28. When they talk about phasing out fossil fuels, everybody there knows that the communist Chinese and India and the Arab government, they're not going to phase out fossil fuels. Give me a break. They all understand that this is a tool for dismantling the economies of the West, shipping our productive capacity to China. And literally, they got caught. The communist Chinese and the Arab governments got caught at that climate summit in Dubai making oil deals at the summit. And this came out in the mainstream media, in the pro-climate alarm. So it's for the suckers in the West to keep dismantling our economies and shifting our productive capacity to China.
Well, also for the New York Times, I heard this glowing report from the New York Times podcast a couple of weeks ago, and they were like, China was a superstar. Everybody was going to China going, look at how China's leading the world. China's not leading the world. China is doing everything that you're trying to ban. They're doing all of it, and then they're selling you their crap to get you to follow the climate, controls. They're not following any of them.
That's one of the biggest stories and the biggest takeaways for me from this whole thing, Glenn. First of all, it proves that at the very top, these people know the climate thing with the CO2 being pollution is a total fraud. And this dawned on me in Paris. I was there in 2015. Barack Obama promised to slash American CO2 emissions by like 30% in 10 years. The Communist Chinese said they were going to keep increasing theirs for 15 years. If you really believe CO2 is a problem, that's the worst possible thing you could do, because every unit of production in China emits way more CO2. So this is a fraud. The people at the highest levels know it. China emits almost 300% more CO2 than America, and it's rising like a rocket ship. But you would never know it at these climate summits. Man. Everybody treats communist China like they're the world leaders. Some of them will lie and say communist China is doing a great job. It's truly incredible. Now, I don't begrudge them their CO2 emissions. You know, CO2, as Will Happer, Trump's climate advisor from the first term, told me, we need more CO2. We should encourage people to make more CO2. It's the gas of life. But to pretend like communist China is saving the world by building a new coal-fired power plant every year and increasing their CO2 emissions while selling us garbage solar panels and windmills that don't work is to utterly ignore all of the evidence, the whole reality.
Yeah. So tell me the controversy over the dragon jaguar guardian spirit thing. How I mean, is this just a symbol of something, or is this like a golden calf kind of thing?
Well, for me, it was a perfect representation of the spiritual reality of these. And I've gone with a lot of people who work for me, people, other journalists, and I'm not the only one who notices the really dark feeling when you get into these things. It's like, spiritual oppression. And so this year, the CCP unveils this gift. They call it a gift to the people of Brazil. It's supposed to be the official dragon jaguar guardian spirit of the COP30. And I encourage people to look at this image. I mean, if you're hearing us on the radio, you're not going to be able to see it. But you can go to my X account, @AlexNewman_JOU. We're going to put it on the cover of the magazine. It's a big, giant leopard, dragon, jaguar thing with big devil horns sticking out the top, holding the whole world in its hands with COP30 emblazoned across the front. And for the Brazilian people, Brazil is a Catholic country. They're famous, of course, for the Christ the Redeemer statue on Mount Corcovado overlooking Rio, which used to be their capital. Brazilian Christians said, hey, Brazil belongs to Jesus Christ, not to your demon, guardian, dragon, devil, spirit, whatever. Get that thing out of our country. So Brazilian Christians were really upset about this. But yeah, this was the official guardian spirit. And for me, it was just a perfect representation of everything that is really going on in the spiritual realm with this whole process.
Oh my gosh, I'm just looking at it. It is absolutely demonic.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Why would you want that? I mean, we have the golden calf, yes, on Wall Street, really kind of a bad thing. This is just so clearly not good. Oh my gosh.
It's a good representation of what's going on. One of the articles I'm writing now is about how they're bringing the religions of the world together to redefine morality in terms of climate and Mother Earth. And we're also watching the repaganization of the West. And that was really on display at this COP. They brought in all kinds of pagan and pantheist and animistic religious groups to pray over Mother Earth. And these were official events, and I've been watching this for years. In Egypt, I was there a couple of years ago for the COP27. They unveiled the new and improved 10 Commandments, where they said we must serve this life-giving, interdependent Earth. There's a very serious religious and spiritual component to this that none of the journalists are seeing. And I think it's because they're all approaching
they never do.
Materialistic worldview, but it's really important.
Yeah. Did you see that Zillow has just removed the climate risk things from their listings? I think it's because they probably got sued because people's houses were dropping in value because they said, "Oh, that's a climate risk, that house." They just took it off.
Yeah, but they did that in Miami too. You had some of the municipalities down there saying, "Oh, our houses are going to be underwater." People said, "Wait a minute. First of all, that's fake. Second of all, you're destroying our property values, which is going to destroy your tax revenue. What are you people doing?" But the reality is, when the polling shows Americans don't believe this stuff, the polling shows less than 1 in 3 Americans is interested in paying even like $10 on their monthly energy bill to stop climate change. So they know from their perspective, the best policy is just to stay quiet, don't say anything, let this thing materialize. And then as they themselves said at this COP and the one before it and the one before that, we're going to get the children. We're going to bring this in through the school. We're going to teach them not just to
so evil.
To take action. It is. They're trying to capture the hearts and minds of our young ones. And that's really the heart of their strategy, because they know the bitter clingers, the older Americans, are not going to go for this stuff.
You follow Alex Newman, Alex Newman _JOU on Twitter. His website is libertysentinel.org. Alex Newman, always good to talk to you, Alex. Thank you.
All right, there we have it. Let me go ahead and click on this Rumble link here and show you that this video does come from Liberty Sentinel, which is Alex Newman's channel. This is the video I shared with you. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here and see what Black Conservative Perspective has to say. Trump prepares devastating move on blue states, refusing to expose illegal immigrants on food stamps. So you have these blue states that have illegal immigrants on food stamps, and the food stamps, EBT, SNAP, whatever, that is for people, American citizens. It's, so that we're to help our own when they run into trouble to get back on their feet. But the blue states are just giving these away to the illegal aliens. And, there's some more about Tim Walz and what's going on in Minnesota, the corruption there. But let's see what BCP has to say about it.
Hey everyone, it's Brooke Rollins. This week, we are seeing real action to restore fairness, accountability, and common sense to our food assistance program.
Oh, yeah.
President Trump's vision to restore common sense reforms to SNAP, or food stamps, is moving to its implementation phase. The One Big Beautiful Bill enacted revised work requirements for able-bodied adults between 18 and 64 who receive SNAP, meaning they will be required to work, to volunteer, to train, or even to study at least 80 hours a month to qualify for benefits as a floor. That's 20 hours a week and 4 hours every work day. This is about restoring dignity and responsibility. We're ending a system where some were taking advantage while honest, hardworking Americans foot the bill. As I have pointed out, the data shows clear misuse, deceased individuals still receiving checks, people collecting benefits in multiple states, and so much more. This is unacceptable. And while we're talking about that, to the 21 states who have yet to send us their data, what is it that you are hiding? Let's partner together to defend the taxpayer and make sure that those who are most vulnerable among us are receiving the benefits. There is dignity in work. There is dignity in service to your community. There is dignity in career and technical education. Also, all USDA programs, including SNAP, are continuing to be under significant review to kick off any illegal immigrants receiving federal benefits. That means no more freebies for lawbreakers. Benefits will be preserved for citizens who follow the rules. We believe in helping Americans who play by the rules. We believe that if you are able-bodied, you should work or contribute to receive taxpayer-funded help. But we also believe that there are vulnerable Americans who need this supplemental nutrition assistance benefit for a short term to help them get back on their feet.
Boy. So we got to talk about the Trump administration doing exactly what I voted for, which is to rid the system of waste, fraud, and abuse. And one of the areas that has the most waste, fraud, and abuse is welfare. As we've been talking about the Somali welfare scam in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Tim Walz is in trouble. You have these Somalis receiving welfare and it ending up in the hands of terrorists, Al-Shabaab in Somalia. So we got to talk about the Trump administration doing even more to clean up our welfare system. And that leads me to SNAP. Now, we've talked about SNAP quite a bit, especially over the last 2 months or so with the government shutdown and the benefits temporarily running out and all these people boo-hoo-whining and crying about losing their government welfare. Now, the Trump administration says, you know what? We're going to clean up the waste, fraud, and abuse within SNAP, okay? And one of the ways that they're trying to do this, that they're trying to get illegals off of the system, and also individuals who are non-citizens and should not be receiving welfare benefits, aka they're not American citizens. They're not American taxpayers.
The fight over federal food support is once again pitting Minnesota against the Trump administration. Attorney General Keith Ellison is joining nearly 24 other states, suing the Trump administration over changes to SNAP or food stamps. This lawsuit focuses on who is eligible for food assistance. Ashley Graham's read through the lawsuit tonight. So, Ashley, what'd you find?
Well, Frank, Democratic attorneys general are leading this effort against the federal government, accusing the USDA of blocking some legal immigrants from receiving SNAP benefits. Attorney General Keith Ellison says this Thanksgiving he's wrapped up in a lawsuit.
Here we are on the eve of this important American holiday. We're fighting to keep food on the table of people who are in our country lawfully and who are entitled to these benefits.
Filed every lawsuit regarding SNAP.
On Wednesday, Ellison, alongside 21 other Democratic attorneys general, filed a lawsuit against the federal government over guidance issued by the USDA about SNAP benefits. Ellison claims that guidance wrongfully denies food assistance to some legal immigrants, including permanent residents admitted as refugees or given asylum.
The law is clear. Refugees and other vulnerable legal immigrants become eligible for SNAP once they obtain their green cards and meet other program requirements. If Trump doesn't like the law, he's welcome to try to change it through the normal, usual legal means.
A spokesperson for the White House said in a statement President Trump was elected with a resounding mandate to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse across the federal government, which includes ensuring that illegal aliens are not receiving benefits intended for American citizens. Guidance from the USDA was issued late last month, months after the One Big Beautiful Bill Act was approved by Congress. That new law limits eligibility for some non-citizens. But the lawsuit filed today claims USDA guidance, quote, goes beyond the act, arbitrarily excluding from SNAP many lawful permanent residents who remain eligible.
However, blue states have went out of their way to protect the illegals because they're refusing to hand over the data of who is on SNAP in their states, right? Because they don't want the illegals to be exposed, which is extremely frustrating because the federal government pays the money to these states, and these states turn around and say, well, we're not going to tell you where the money's going, right? Or who is receiving the money that we're getting from the federal government. So the Trump administration has essentially announced that, okay, that's fine, right? If that's what you want to do, if that's how you want to play the game, we're going to withhold funding from the states that refuse to turn over the illegals who are on SNAP. Take a look.
USDA, but the third thing, which became very much a part of the national conversation during the Democrat shutdown, was SNAP reform, food stamp reform. When all of America saw what so many of us know and have been working on, but when you have so much rampant fraud in a program that 42 million Americans participate in, now a big good piece of news that I hope is written about, since you became president, about 800,000 of those 42 million have moved off of food stamps, which is hopefully the plan with better jobs, higher wages, et cetera. But still, when we found 186,000 dead people's Social Security numbers being used, 500,000 people receiving benefits more than twice. We had a couple of people receiving benefits in 6 states. In February of this year, we asked for all the states for the first time to turn over their data to the federal government, to let the USDA partner with them to root out this fraud, to make sure that those who really need food stamps are getting them, but also to ensure that the American taxpayer is protected. 21 states said yes, not surprised. 29 states said yes, not surprisingly, the red states. And that's where all of that data, that fraud comes from. But 21 states, including California, New York, and Minnesota, the blue states, continue to say no. So as of next week, we have begun and will begin to stop moving federal funds into those states until they comply and they tell us and allow us to partner with them to root out this fraud and to protect the American taxpayer.
Boom. They should have did that a long time ago, right? They should have did that a long time ago. I feel like in past videos, I said that they should go ahead and strip funding from these states that refuse to comply, because I don't understand how in the world do we live in a country where the federal government gives states money, right? Here's money from the federal government, and the states receiving that money say, we don't want to tell you where the money's going, right? We don't want to tell you who we're giving the money to. And if you claim that we're giving the money to people who aren't supposed to get the money, then you are a right-wing conspiracy theorist, right? You're racist, you're xenophobe, you're hateful, you're bigoted, and you just hate poor people in general, right? This is what they say. But they do this because they don't want you to check. They don't want you to know what they're doing with the money because a lot of the money is going towards waste, fraud, and abuse, right? This is why Democrats get so upset by transparency, okay? Any type of transparency, these people lose their minds. So I agree with the Trump administration. They should be withholding funds. In fact, I don't even think that these blue states should get food stamps. Let's keep it 100. If you can't show us who is receiving the money, they should just withhold food stamps and let them cry about it. Let them cry. Let them boo-hoo. I don't care. Show us who is receiving the money, okay? We need to know you're getting the money, and that money comes with stipulations and requirements. That's just the reality of the situation. We're not just going to give you money and say, hey, this is what you're supposed to use the money on, and then not check. That's how waste, fraud, and abuse happens. That is how Minnesota happened, right? The Somalis engaged in fraud, the welfare fraud, because nobody was checking. They were getting money and nobody checked. Nobody came after them and said, hey, are you using the money on what you're supposed to be using the money on, right? That is how it ends up in the hands of Al-Shabaab, of terrorists, okay? So it's time that the federal government do their jobs and to actually hold these states accountable for making sure that the funds that these states are receiving, that money is going to where it's supposed to go to, right?
Look, college is just not
time, and the headlines most secure.
with that.
I'd say it's very ironic because for 17 years in my foundation, all I heard was the robots are coming to take the welders, right? Well, no, actually, everything is evolving a bit, but right now, from where I'm sitting, the most security I can find in the workforce is in the classic trade jobs. Alex Karp talks about this all the time, and the headlines have caught up to his message as well over at Palantir. It's just an extraordinary confluence of things that I think is redefining the job market and the definition of a practical education.
Let me talk more about Palantir. They say, look, college is just not a reliable training ground anymore. They've gone out and hired 22 high school students. They're saying, hey, skip the debt, skip the indoctrination.
Yeah.
Come straight to us at a high school. You've got to like that, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the reason I like it is it wasn't 22 random high school grads. You know, Alex Karp puts these guys and women through the ringer. They have to score very, very high. They have to demonstrate real work ethic. He selects them, and then he puts them through this meritocracy. You know, it's a training program on steroids. So they're still getting taught things like, you know, history and some social sciences, but they've got a front row seat to learning the actual skills that they're going to need for the job at hand. That, excellent, I believe, in some measure, will be the future of education. And in various ways, too, Stuart, you're going to see it in lots of different companies. Jim Farley over at Ford is talking about building his own trade schools now, just like Henry Ford did 100 years ago within that company. So big corporations, I believe, are going to do what's in their best interest to educate the workforce they need by whatever metric makes sense on the given day. It's happening.
Yeah. So you get the gist of this, right? Now, here's what I want to say. Here's what I want to add to this, right? Because with change comes opportunity. I think too much people get caught up in complaining about change rather than understanding and looking for the opportunity in change. Particularly, again, if you are a 18, 19, 20-year-old man, right? In fact, if you're watching this video and you know some 18, 19, 20-year-old that is stuck in life, they don't know what to do, send them this video because this is what I would do. This is the advice I would give myself if I was 18, 19, 20 years old. Looking forward into the future, right? I personally would take advantage of the technology that we have today. Understanding that, yes, in the future, AI is going to be a thing. That there are some jobs that will be done by AI. But you can figure out which jobs are going to be AI resistant by using AI. Like, you know, for example, all you got to do, pull up ChatGPT, type in, what are the best jobs for a young person that is going to be AI resistant in the future, right? For the next 20, 30 years. Boom. ChatGPT will give you a list of all these jobs. Lo and behold, you will find that a vast majority of these jobs are blue-collar jobs. There's still some white-collar jobs in there as well, too, but a vast majority are blue-collar jobs. look over that list, figure out what you're interested in, research the salary, research the pay, and then also ask ChatGPT, how do I become, for example, an electrician? An electrician going to be in heavy demand going to the future, especially again with the data center development, the demand for energy. Electricians are going to be, they're going to rack up, right? HVAC guys, they're going to rack up. Blue collar guys, they're going to rack up. They're going to rack up for the next 10 to 20 years. Guaranteed, right? Find out how to become one of those guys. What do I need to do to gain those skills? And then work towards doing that. Once you get into one of the trades and you start getting paid $100, $150, $200,000 like some of these guys are getting paid right now, what I would do personally, this is just me, this is just advice to myself, right? Is that I would live frugally and I would make sure that I'm investing a significant portion of my income in the stock market and in Bitcoin. Like, for example, I probably do, out of all of my investments, right, my actual investments, okay, I'll probably do 20, 30% Bitcoin, maybe the rest of it in the S&P 500, tech heavy stocks, stocks that are going to do well going into the future economy. And the reason why I say Bitcoin and not crypto, I'm not saying Ethereum, I'm not saying Solana, I'm not saying any other crypto, I'm talking about Bitcoin, is because Bitcoin has monetary properties that, in my opinion, will make it essentially the only eligible candidate to be the base monetary layer for global settlement in the future. And I'm not going to make a whole video. I'm not going to make this video about explaining exactly what that is, but just understand that debt has now become structural in the global economy. It's not going away. And because of that, going forward into the future, hard money assets, like, for example, Bitcoin, in my opinion, are going to become more and more and more valuable, right? Again, it's not advice, right? I'm just telling you my thoughts, what I think, okay?
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. And, he provides great information. He was right in the beginning of his video about how, what is it with these blue states? I mean, they're just so corrupt. But you're not allowed to check and make sure they're doing things the right way. If that's not a WTF moment, I don't know what is. I don't understand. And at the end here, he was right about the AI. I mean, there's going to be jobs available out there for people, and you're going to be well ahead of the ball game by trying to get into some of these jobs, like an electrician. My granddaughter's boyfriend, he got a position as an electrician apprentice. He makes $20 an hour, and he works 60 hours a week. I mean, he's making like $1,400 a week as an apprentice. He said the electricians make $60 an hour, and they work about 70 hours a week. That's over $200,000, just as he said. So, and he's fresh out of high school. He's 18 years old. All right, let me click on this Rumble link and show you that this video comes from Black Conservative Perspective. I am following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here and see what Dr. Steve Turley has to say about Ilhan Omar. Hit with devastating news. Things just got way worse. Well, that sounds like good news to me. Devastating for her and good news for us.
Ilhan Omar. No, it's not just the accusations that she married her own brother. A perfect storm of menacing developments, many of her own making, is threatening to remove Omar from power once and for all. Stick to the very end of this video because we're about to see what happens when a public figure who thought she was beyond reproach, that she could do or say anything with impunity, gets hit hard with reality, and that pride becomes the occasion for her own downfall. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, enjoying yet another wonderful day in the glorious golden age that you made possible back on November the 5th. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the world in ways you never even imagined, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. The politically correct woke sentiments of the legacy media were absolutely shocked when President Trump openly declared the other day that Ilhan Omar should be thrown out of the country for possibly marrying her own brother and for her repulsively anti-American rhetoric.
Coming into our country, telling us what to do. When you're talking with Dina, I'm talking about like Somalia, where you have a congressman goes around telling everybody about our Constitution, and yet she supposedly came into a country by marrying her brother. Well, if that's true, she shouldn't be a congressman, and we should throw her the hell out of our country.
Now, what a lot of people didn't recognize here is that Trump timed that message, that call for Omar's deportation, absolutely perfectly. Remember, Trump is a master politician. Nigel Farage, right, the next prime minister of Britain, he said that he has never met anyone with the political intuition of a Donald Trump. Again, the guy is an absolute master. And what we have to understand is that this call to deport Omar is a perfect demonstration of that political mastery, because as Victor Davis Hanson has been arguing, Trump's comments are but the latest in a chain reaction triggered by Omar's online comments about the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk. And it's that chain reaction that represents the single most dangerous moment of Ilhan Omar's political career. So what are we talking about here? Well, let's go back to that horrific day, September 10th, 2025. Charlie Kirk, 31 years old, founder of Turning Point USA, one of the most influential conservative voices in America, is gunned down in cold blood while doing what a woke coward like Ilhan Omar would never do, speaking to students in a hostile environment on a college campus at Utah Valley University. So Charlie gets gunned down. The nation was obviously shocked. The country mourned. Leaders from both parties offered condolences. But Ilhan Omar, you might remember, she had a quite different response.
I just think it was the video where it called him Dr. Frankenstein and said his monster shot him through the neck. I mean, obviously this is a person, and looking at this is someone who was a husband and a father, and in the days after his shocking death, that happened as a result of his views, or it happened as a result as he was sharing his views publicly with people, that people found it jarring to hear such criticism of that in the immediate aftermath of
what I find jarring is that there's so many people willing to excuse the most reprehensible things that he said, that they agree with that they're willing to have monuments for him, that they want to create a day to honor him, and that they want to produce resolutions in the House of Congress honoring his life and legacy. It is one thing to care about his life, because obviously so many people loved him, including his children and wife. But I am not going to sit here and be judged for not wanting to honor any legacy this man has left behind. That should be in the dustbin of history, and we should hopefully move on and forget the hate that he spewed every single day.
Talk about projection. I mean, seriously, there is literally no one more hate-filled, more viciously vile than Ilhan Omar. The woman is a parody of repulsiveness.
He's
and
right.
Obviously, comments like that rightly sparked a massive social media backlash and a political one. Almost immediately, Republicans introduced resolutions to strip Omar of her committee assignments and formally censure her. Representative Nancy Mace absolutely ripped into Omar, calling her a disgrace. And they would have formally censured her if a handful of Republicans didn't defect and vote with the Democrats. And that's because Republicans suck. And they've always sucked. They're grifters. They're fake. They're just there for their own power and affluence. They don't give a shit about you or me. And by the way, this is the biggest problem that Trump has yet to solve if he wants to see the MAGA movement extend beyond presidential politics. MAGA thus far has galvanized around a man, around a leader, but it most certainly has not galvanized around a party, and for very good reason, because Republicans never fail to betray and disappoint their own voters. But I digress. While Omar survived that censure vote, That survival, as it turns out, was hardly a victory. What was so noticeable throughout all of this was the deafening silence from progressive allies. They all basically abandoned Omar, at least when it came to their stupid stump speeches. We heard no defense from the limited vocabulary of AOC, no backup from Bernie. When your party won't touch you, that's not politics, that's abandonment. And then an absolute bombshell dropped in Omar's own district. A corruption scandal that goes so deep into Minnesota politics, it threatens to take down everyone associated with it, including Omar herself. Wait until you see this. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve. Your games play. Have eaten hungry of them. Those during COVID implicating this fraud are of some in U.S. history. We're talking on Omar's recap. A massive fraud scandal has exploded Democrat politics inside Minneapolis, and most especially Ilhan Omar's own district. Nearly 80 people have now been arrested in what prosecutors are calling the largest pandemic fraud case in U.S. history. We're talking about $250 million that was supposed to feed hungry children during COVID, instead ended up lining the pockets of these fraudsters. Now, as it turns out, all but a handful of them, those implicating this fraud, are of Somali descent. And so President Trump responded to this bombshell by announcing that he's terminating temporary protected status for Somali nationals, particularly in Minnesota, the very community that put Omar in office. There are approximately 700 Somali TPS holders nationwide, with hundreds in Minnesota. And then on top of that, according to a report by Al Jazeera, there are more than 4,000 Somalis facing deportation orders for reasons other than the suspension of TPS. And Trump's message was absolutely clear. Send them back to where they came from. It is over. And now, ironically, the very Somali community that put Omar into office are beginning to turn on her. They're beginning to blame her. They're starting to ask whether her reckless actions ended up putting them at risk. Now enter President Trump and his calls to deport her. I mean, do you see the beauty of the timing here, the political timing here? This wasn't just rhetoric. This was the President of the United States with full institutional authority putting a target on her political survival. She's never been weaker. And you'll notice he didn't attack her ideology. He attacked her legitimacy. And that changes everything, because now she's trapped. If she fights back aggressively, she continues to look self-aggrandizing, self-interested, prioritizing her own political survival over her community, which is exactly what her Somali constituents are so upset about with her. If, however, she stays quiet, if she doesn't fight back, she looks weak, unable to protect the people who elected her. So either way, she's shot. This is the political genius of Trump. He employed a two-step strategy here. First, ending the TPS, temporary protected status for Somalis, a constituency central to Omar's Minnesota base. And then, secondly, he basically said to Omar, yeah, and you need to leave with them. You're every bit as illegitimate as they are. Now, word on the street is that Omar's fundraising has collapsed. And if you could believe it, Omar is already facing a primary challenger for the 5th district, the district she represents. And Democrat leaders are privately reported to be saying more or less they just view her as a liability at this point. So all of this, the public outrage over her Kirk comments, the fraud scandal in her district, Trump's targeted pressure, her supposed base erosion, donor flight, primary challenger, all of this is converging together to put Ilhan Omar in the single most dangerous moment of her political career. So we're going to keep a very close eye on how she navigates this politically perilous situation she finds herself in. But given that so much of this is the result of her own reckless rhetoric and behavior, I highly doubt she's going to make it out.
All right, there you go. Sounds great to me. All right, let me go over here, click over here on the Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Dr. Steve Turley. I am following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, I want to jump over here and show you my creator program statistics for this month, December. Okay, here we are, December 3rd, right? Okay. These are my requirements. As you can see, they're all green except unique chatters this month. Okay, I've got a lot of people that chat most every video. Blue Peahen, Debbie BS, Deb Brandt, and others. But I need people that have not chatted before to give me a chat. Just say hi, how you doing? You suck, whatever. Just give me a chat. Hours streamed from Rumble Studio, I need 30. Right now I have 31.2. Already the third. This is the third. Okay, Rumble Premium exclusive hours streamed, I need 5. I've got 6.2. Hours watched this month, I need 200 hours. People watching, 200 hours. I've got 574 here on the third. Total unique rants this month, I've got 9. My requirement is 5. Okay, and those are the rants that I told you where I can do raid. Not total unique raids, not rant. Total unique raids this month, I've got 9. So if I do /raid and then put the link to like Wendy Bell Radio or Chicks on the Right, and it'll send the viewers that's watching my video over to their video. That's called a raid. All right, I've met my requirements here, the third of the month, and the third isn't even over yet. But I have 8 people that have chatted, 8 different people that have chatted. Give me a chat in the chat box, and I need 20. So I need 12 more. I know it's only the third, but we might as well go ahead and get this all cleaned up and done for. All right. With that being said, let's jump back here and wrap this up with X22 report, episode 3787A. Trump just explained what Liberation Day is really about. Breaking free from the central bank. Okay, let's check it out.
Just click the link in the description. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum, they're in a lot of trouble right now because Trump and the Patriots, they've been letting us know that we're going to have Liberation Day in 2026 on July 4th. And I do believe what Trump's attempting to do right now, and I do believe he will succeed, he's going to be breaking us free of the central bank system using the tariff system. And we are going to liberate ourselves from the slave grip of the central bank system. He continually repeats that the tariff system is going to allow us to wean ourselves off of the income tax. And again, shift us to external revenue. And that's what this is all about. Because again, if we go all the way back to 1913, all of a sudden, the third central bank system was basically brought into this country and has taken over ever since. And every day that passes, it has enslaved the people. The economy gets worse. The value of the currency declines, and it gets worse and worse for the people every single day. And I do believe Trump now, he is right on schedule to basically break the chains of the central bank system. That's what this is all about. Remember, the central bank system, I do believe, is the heart of the corruption and everything else that we've been seeing. And Trump now, he is on course, right on schedule, to break us free from all of this. And this is why the deep state players are so panicked. Because again, if you don't have an open credit card, their entire agenda completely and utterly implodes on itself. They lose complete and utter control, not just in this country, but around the world. And you know what happens to the economy? The economy all of a sudden turns around just like that. And people start to realize, wait a minute, why were we living like this? Why did we have this inflation? Why was our currency worth absolutely nothing? Why was I working harder and harder? Why weren't there jobs? Why were there so many people on government assistance? It never had to be this way. And that's what Trump and the Patriots are going to show the people. Just with Trump removing the income tax, let's just throw out a number now. Those people that make under $100,000, they're going to see a different way of life. Now, remember, as we go through this transition period, we still have to make sure the government operates. And this is why Trump is working so hard to shrink the government and to actually expand the entire parallel economic system that he is now creating. So, yes, we are in a transition period. And you can see those states that have been following the agenda of the deep state, the central bankers, the Green New Scam, the World Economic Forum, whatever you want to call it, as they follow this agenda, what happens? The state or the countries, they have major, major problems. Electricity costs are skyrocketing. They have to continually say, we have to tax you more and tax you more and tax you more. Because again, they're pushing a certain agenda. And if you look at New Jersey, for example, they actually have an exit tax. If you decide to sell your home and you leave New Jersey, and if you're 65 years or older, I think you have to pay something like $4,500. If you're under 65, I think you pay $10,000. And look what California is doing right now. Amuse put this out and says, California now wants a retroactive billionaire tax. Leave the state and they'll tax last year's wealth anyway. The exodus is real. The desperation is worse. With 220 billionaires left in the state and many reportedly preparing to bolt, California Democrats unveiled a retroactive billionaire tax targeting 2025 residency. The 5% levy applies even if the individual has already relocated, turning temporary fiscal policy into a weapon against those who stay too long. While courts have sometimes upheld narrow retroactive taxes, justices from Scalia to O'Connor have warned against exactly this kind of bait-and-switch confiscation. As California's population and revenue base shrink, the state appears willing to gamble on a constitutionally dubious wealth grab to plug the holes. Now, of course, they know it's going to take some time. They know they can collect as much as possible during this period of time, and you know they're never going to ever return that money. So, yes, they will push this very hard because what are they seeing? They are seeing that they're not getting the federal funds anymore. They realize that, wait a minute, where the income coming in is not supporting what we're laundering right now. The entire state is imploding on itself. Corporations are moving out. Now, as we wrap up 2025, it's a good time to slow down. Friends, in an untrade, it's free wealth protection kits. Risk, consult your financial difference between the blue and the red states. They're in a no-win situation, and you can see it's going to get worse and worse for them as time goes on. And you're really going to see the difference. And I think we're already starting to see the difference between the blue and the red states. I think it's becoming very, very clear. And I think it's becoming very clear that when Trump said he's going to be bringing gas down below $2 a gallon, he was totally serious. I wouldn't be surprised when all's said and done, we actually see gas below $1. I do believe it's going to hit that point. But when you look at fuel today, especially out in Colorado, and Johnny Maga put this out, gas is $1.82. Think about that for a second. $1.82. And Trump was able to do this within 10, 11 months? So basically, this is absolutely true. If you look at Sam's Club, Sinclair, Shell out in Denver, these are the prices. Sam Club's $1.82 a gallon. Sinclair, $1.82. Shell, $1.83. Now everyone's going to go, well, I don't see that in my state. How come I don't see it in California? Well, talk to your people in California and think about all the taxes that they ramped up on this. And remember, right now, California is a failing state. Some other states have other taxes on their fuel. But eventually what's going to happen as fuel prices continually come down, I do believe as we enter 2026 and all the leases and the leases for all the oil companies, regulations are removed, you're going to see that everything that Trump has done during 2025 is going to take effect in 2026, and you're going to see fuel prices really start to come down. And this is how Trump is now battling the central bank system. Remember, the inflation that you feel never disappears. It's cumulative. The only way you can make it disappear is actually lower energy costs, which allows you to produce cheaply. It allows you to fill up your car cheaply, which means you have more money in your pocket. It allows for delivering items a lot more cheaper. Airlines, they'll lower their prices because they're getting fuel cheaper. But eventually, Trump will take this to the next step because this will only solve part of the problem. He will then start to pay off the debt because this is one of the only ways to get rid of inflation. Remember, the debt is all the money printing that's in circulation, which dilutes the currency. As you repay the debt, what happens? By dilution goes away. And all of a sudden, you start to feel your buying power come back. And think about what happens when we completely and utterly remove ourselves from the central bank and we go back to the gold standard. You're going to have full buying power, which means that any mortgage that you have today that's fixed right now, it's going to seem like it's nothing to pay. And I think people are going to start to really see this as time goes on. And Trump, he put out a couple of truths today showing everyone how much better the economy is compared to Biden. The first one is real wages are recovering after a massive hit from Biden's inflation. And if you look at Biden's wages, it was minus almost $3,000. Trump is plus 1,151. So that is very, very good. If you look at the deficit right now, Trump's policies have sharply reduced the deficit. And you can see that once again, he's doing everything to basically take what the deep state, the central bankers have done for a very long time, and he's trying to bring it back to the point where he can start moving very, very quickly to actually wean us off the central bank system. When you look at the manufacturing renaissance, it is now underway. If you look at going all the way back to 2023, and this is what the graph shows, you see 0.5% or negative 0.4% or negative 1.4%. If you look at the manufacturing now, it's positive 3.5%, positive 2.4%. So it's getting better and better and better. And Trump is continually having more and more investments piled into this country.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. I've got like 6 minutes left of this video. I'll have this in my daily news wrap up. I want to go ahead and show you that this, click on the Rumble link and show you this video does come from X22 Report. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, I'm going to jump over here, and I hope I've got this set up right for Wendy Bell, because the beginning of her second hour of her program was pretty good stuff. So let's take a listen to this. Let's go to the party.
Democrats aren't doing complaining, whatever hell she's wearing for America, bitch. And people like Ilhan Omar, absolutely garbage. What has she done for America? What has she done for Minnesota? What has she done for people in her state? Because whenever I see her swaddled in whatever hell she's wearing, she's complaining about some wrong that has even befallen her or somebody else. And she's always angry and complaining, as Donald Trump says, bitching about this or that. You know what? Maybe you need to go back to Somalia because things aren't doing so well over there. And maybe you need to take all of the people with you who've been ripping off the American people. Why don't Democrats ever get outraged? Are they always in on the grift? Because it kind of feels like that. So now we've got the Treasury Department investigating the Somalians in Minnesota and investigating Tim Walz. What did you know? When did you know it? How have you allowed so much grifting, grafting, theft, corrupt? How have you allowed it? You've literally blessed it by not listening to the whistleblowers who years ago told you, excuse me, Governor Walz, we got to tell you something. And instead of listening and making changes or investigating or doing one of flipping anything, you clown. You basically just nodded along, let it happen, and then retaliated against the whistleblowers. Sounds like a Democrat. Small Business Administration now is investigating as well. Kelly Loeffler sitting at the big oval table with the president and the rest of the cabinet yesterday, saying, you know what, we're on this too, Mr. President. Apparently, Donald Trump has told his various cabinet heads, hey, let's figure out how big this is, because it ain't just Minnesota. And they're on it. President Trump's administration is keeping its focus squarely on Minnesota, with the head of the U.S. Small Business Administration now the latest to order an investigation in the state. In a social media post, Small Business Administration Administrator Kelly Loeffler wrote, numerous individuals and nonprofits indicted in the $1 billion Minnesota COVID fraud scandal, including Feeding Our Future, received Small Business Administration PPP loans. In addition to other state and federal funding today, I have ordered an investigation into the network of Somali organizations and executives implicated in these schemes. Who's doing a dive on Ilhan Omar? That's not her last name. In fact, there's all sorts of stuff on this Congresswoman, this malignant piece of garbage, as President Trump called her. And that doesn't offend me at all. At all. What kind of person says that? Asks Terry Moran. Well, somebody who's obviously paying attention, unlike you and the media and the Democrats. Loeffler went on to accuse Walz of obstruction, although it's unclear what, if anything, she was specifically referring to. Small Business Administration supports small businesses with funding in a variety of programs. Well, it's funny. I was a small business owner back during COVID. I don't remember getting any kind of PPP assistance as Brock and I were launching this radio network by ourselves after getting shut down, fired, canceled, doxxed, basically 3 different times. I don't remember getting any money. Why is it all these Somalian groups were? Well, Kelly Loeffler is going to get to the bottom of it. I'm going to read you her tweet, and then we're going to play something for you because I think Kristi Noem is who says the best part. Kelly Loeffler in her tweet says, look, numerous individuals and nonprofits indicted in the $1 billion Minnesota COVID fraud scandal, including Feeding Our Future, received PPP loans in addition to other state and federal funding. Today, I have ordered an investigation into the network of Somali organizations and executives implicated in these schemes. Now, the Democrats' response to that is, you're just a hater. You're just a racist. You don't like people. They're darker skinned than you are. You must not like them. You must be anti-immigrant. Well, it's kind of fallen on deaf ears because they've called us every name in the book, It doesn't work anymore, and they're realizing, oh, snap. Despite Governor Walz's best efforts to obstruct, the Small Business Administration continues to work to expose abuse and hold perpetrators accountable, Kelly Loeffler said. Full stop. Well, to that, I will tell you, the Somalians are not very happy. They're coming after us. We're just poor little meek people. We're just escaping all of the third world harms. We just want a chance to give our children an opportunity. You know what? We want to do the same for our kids. But our kids are getting screwed by people like these folks who are allowed to get away with rampant and egregious fraud. Let's read about how they're upset. Apparently, the Somalian population in Minnesota, 80,000 people, which is a crap ton. They're fearful. They're worried. No, we need your help. Well, there's Terry Moran to come to the rescue. Who talks like that? Well, people who are telling the truth, Terry. From the Carmel Mall in South Minneapolis to the Dar al-Farouk Islamic Center in Bloomington, there is concern among the Somali community. Good. So this has been very scary. A lot of people are very fearful, declared Khalid Omar, Adel al-Farouk board member. On Friday, President Trump announced he was terminating temporary protected status for Somali migrants in Minnesota due to fraudulent activity in the state. Well, you listen to Tim Walz, and what does he say? You can't just demonize an entire community because of a few bad apples. That's lazy. No, Governor, it's called too late. Sadly. I want you to hear what Kristi Noem said sitting at this table, cabinet members, last night or yesterday, because it's fantastic. Apparently, Trump has issued directives to a lot of these cabinet members and said, you know what? I'm sure that this fraud from the Somalians and all of this stuff going on in Minnesota, I'm sure it bleeds over into your realm. Hey, Kristi Noem, Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, would you please get on that? Well, she has, and she reported back to the president and America yesterday.
You told me to look into Minnesota and their fraud on visas and their programs. 50% of them are fraudulent, which means that wacko Governor Walz either is an idiot or he did it on purpose. And I think he's bold, sir. He brought people in there illegally that never should have been in this country, said they were somebody that they're not. They said they were married to somebody who was their brother or somebody else. Fraudulent visa applications, signed up for government programs, took hundreds of billions of dollars from the taxpayers, and we're going to remove them and we're going to get our money back.
Do you get your money back? Do you go into the Somalian community and you say, you know what, I'm going to take your Mercedes and that vacation house that you bought in Aspen and those fur coats and all of those diamonds that are dripping off of you? Maybe there are even some gold bars that they got. Or maybe their coats are stuffed with money like Bob Goldbar Menendez was, right? Oh no, say the Somalis. It's entirely disappointing and very hurtful to our community, they're saying. At this moment, the only thing that can defend us is the court of law. It's the only thing that can defend us from being sent back home. Say this.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there, but I thought that was good stuff that I wanted to share with you. And again, in my daily news wrap-up, I will have Wendy's video in there from this morning. And I'll actually start that back from the beginning so you can hear the first part of her program, because it's pretty good too. But I did want to share that with you, give you a bonus tonight. But let me remind you, folks, that these videos that I share with you are videos that come directly from the producer. I have the link to the videos. I have the link to the producer's channel. I don't get any commissions or royalties for sharing this information out, but I do like to give people the opportunity to actually hear the truth rather than the lies and propaganda that's like spewing out of Ilhan Omar's mouth and all these others, Tim Walz. It's amazing the lies that they can tell with a straight face. Okay, I do want to thank you folks for being with me tonight. Let me jump over here and show you my playlist. Here's Wendy Bell's video. I'm going to start out with some interesting information from Dr. Steve Turley. You won't believe how many judges Trump just fired. I thought that was interesting. I wanted to add that in there. Interesting information from American Center for Law and Justice exposed Jack Smith subpoena cover-up. Okay, and as I said, X22 report, some information from Benny Johnson, checks on the right, some more Dr. Steve Turley. So I've got a great lineup for you tonight at 8:30. Let me go ahead and update my playlist some more if I need to, and get my Rumble Studio all set up for the wrap-up tonight. And with that being said, I do want to thank you for being with me this evening. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later. And may God bless.